What makes a good build in Destiny 2's current PvP meta? That's one of the main questions I ask myself whenever I work on a build that not only has to be able to compete at a high level, but is also fun to play for the current PvP landscape. I try not to get caught up in whether or not something is performing as intended, and just try to enjoy it for what it is. Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't flow out of you, and you don't love it, then why should you do it? Sunbreaker has been my favorite subclass since D1, and I plan to make a lot of content on it going forward. Not because it's the only class that I play, but the class that I play. Hello Warriors, this is Mars, and welcome back to another Sunbreaker PvP build crafting video. In this video, I'm going to go over some more adjustments with the building process, loadout changes, and making the build more flexible for different engagements. Before I continue, I would ask if you're interested in this type of content, please leave a like and share the video. And if you really like the content, subscribe and join my merry band of hardened warriors. It really helps me out and it helps the channel grow. Let's start by keying in on the main exotic, the Path of Burning Steps. Path is the primary damage ramping tool that increases the damage of all weapons across the board. I had thought using a solar weapon with either a damage ramping perk would be the best option, but I also had the idea of adding weapons with area of effect perks because Sunbreaker is an AoE focused class. Utilizing Scorch on a Sunbreaker is one of the most important tools in the Sunbreaker's arsenal, but does it matter? Yes and no. Most of the time it's more efficient dealing with one target at a time, and if I were to focus on building for AoE, the entirety of the build would change unless I were to utilize something like Ace of Spades, Sunshot, or a weapon with Firefly, Dragonfly, or Incandescent. Dragonfly on its own is a really effective AoE tool since you can control lanes a lot easier. When someone takes explosive damage, they're going to move out of the way. Path arguably is a very strong exotic for Sunbreaker if you are accurate with your shooting, or you can consistently get kills with your abilities. Might I add, it isn't difficult to be successful on Sunbreaker, but it is certainly more dependent on how skilled you are with your loadout and your build compared to what is meta. But how can we get the most out of this build? For one, I was thinking I need to gain access to all damaging effects in any way I can, and I have to have them synergize with one another. For example, if I'm proccing a solar weapon with Swashbuckler by getting a kill with my throwing hammer or just my melee attack, I get the damage bonus to my weapons, and I also get another damage bonus by becoming Radiant. Let's say I get another kill, but this time with the solar weapon and I proc Firewalker. After that, I swapped my primary with Harmony, trained my eyes on my next target, and the rest is history. I feel like my primary goal is to build something that will be able to stand its ground against any opponent at any point in time, sort of like gun fu. But I also feel like I'm focusing too heavily on one aspect of the build. I would like to develop the other attributes of the offensive capabilities of this build, like the melee and the grenade. I believe there needs to be more going on instead of solely relying on my weapons. I say this out of honesty. I'm not the most accurate shot, and my current skills are in a state where I question if I become a geriatric old man on top of easily becoming triggered due to my own performance. I can perform, but I'm very out of practice. So what can I use in my kit to lessen the skill requirement to win more engagements? I believe utilizing my barricade a lot more than I already do, extensive testing with grenades, and practice. Sunbreaker has a lot in its kit that can either make it an effective zoning class and immediately swap to being a very aggressive one in an instant, but you have to know how to utilize your tools. For a while I had relied on the healing grenade for obvious reasons, but there's so much you can miss out on, like getting easy grenade cleanups. Incendiaries can apply a lot of pressure and are great for cleaning up those easy kills. Fusions are good offensive and defensive tools. Thermites are really good at clearing lanes if positioned and timed well, and solar grenades are good at blocking choke points. It's important to figure out what you need in your loadout and what you can integrate into your playstyle to make the build very flexible. Next, I want to talk about some of the weapons that I've added to my loadout, starting with Sturm and Drang. Sturm and Drang is literally meant for this build. There isn't much else to say outside of that. They are both really effective weapons as long as you're accurately landing headshots. When Sturm's overcharged rounds are active, the critical damage jumps from 80 to 144. And when Firewalker ×1 is active, it scales to 166 to the head and 104 to the body. Drang is purely a goated secondary weapon. The loadout is perfect, but like I said, you have to have adequate gun skill. If you miss shots, the build loses its effectiveness. Now that I think about it, using the something new hand cannon may be more forgiving due to having Harmony. Harmony just has a higher uptime that can be paired with a path's damage boosting effect and is able to do a lot of damage in that duration since you're still able to two-shot your opponents anyway. It is almost as effective as the Sturm and Drang combo. Almost. Sturm and Drang are a pair of stat monsters. They are some of the best weapons in their respective archetypes, so if you plan to use one, it's wise to use the other. But what if I wish to use a shotgun or another hard-hitting weapon? Should I still use those as a backup, or can I choose to use another weapon in a competitive setting? In my opinion, it's up to preference. Sturm and Drang can support any weapon or loadout. Sturm just benefits the most being paired with Drang. For this particular build, it is all about gunning and running. How accurate I am at medium to long range engagements and how well I can deal with rushing combatants makes or breaks the build. I believe it's a great combo to have, but I've come to realize that I need to strive for their particular synergy in all related loadouts to this build. Next, let's talk about my new favorite sidearm, Devil's Ruin. My only regret is not playing with this weapon sooner. Out of many of the sidearms that I've played with over the years, this one feels the easiest to get consistent headshots with, and your accuracy is also pretty substantial as well. An absolute dynamite with a laser beam. Literally. It is one of the most competitive sidearms that I possess in my current arsenal, and is an amazing addition to this build. The laser beam absolutely melts targets, and when you start to ramp up Firewalker, I have the option to swap to my main weapon, or reload quickly and prepare to drop the next opponent with the sidearm. Might I add, this weapon has some serious range. You can challenge most weapons in short and medium range engagements and clear lanes reliably. I really like pairing this sidearm with a hand cannon because it gives the build the option to rely on both assets. I can keep slaying with the sidearm at most medium range engagements, and when I swap to the hand cannon after a Devil's Ruin cleanup, I can easily drop an opponent when Harmony procs. Granted, I fear the time to kill is still a bit shorter than faster weapons like SMGs and high rate of fire sidearms. Those weapons seem to be much more threatening if you don't react quickly enough. I have lost a few engagements due to the fact that my trigger finger hesitated for just a moment before firing. Lastly, I want to talk about Mindbender's ambition. So I just recently acquired this shotgun with small bore, accurized rounds, slideways, and swashbuckler. This weapon is for slaying. I've cleaned up many opponents with this shotgun so far, and I'm not sure if I want this to be my primary solar shotgun over Compass Rose, but it's certainly a top pick. This is also an adept version, so I have access to adept mods, and I'm currently running in a range mod. Slideways makes it so I don't have to reload as often, and my next engagement is easier to win than the last due to having the damage buff from Swash. This shotty is perfect for this build. Well guys, that's the end of the build crafting video. Currently I'm still in the process of build testing and fine tuning my loadout to figure out what other adjustments I can make. There are a plethora of things that can really boost Path of Burning Steps potential on Sunbreaker, so before I say anything about completing the build, I want to combine all my build crafting ideas into a completed product. So until then, I'll continue making build crafting videos. I like making PvE builds, and I feel like this is the direction I should go with my content on top of the occasional PvP gameplay video and PvP short. And also, I wanted to apologize. I was supposed to have this video out much sooner than I did. Some things came up and I just couldn't focus on it at the time. But I will try to do everything more in a timely manner going forward. So, anyway, if you enjoyed the video or found it entertaining, I would really appreciate it if you liked and shared the video. And if you really like this type of content and want to see more, hit that sub button and join my merry band of hardened warriors. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for watching, and keep on slaying. Peace.